This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is the Yale Superior Euro Profile Cylinder. For those of you who watch my channel regularly, you may recall that I recently featured the Magnum Superior in video number 494. These are essentially the exact same lock, probably even made in the same factory, just branded differently. This Yale lock, however, is by far the more common variant. If we were to take a look at this key, you would see it's pretty intimidating to a picker. What we have is 7 dimple pins here in 2 staggered rows, and not only are they in 2 rows, but they also approach the core at angles. We have 4 that come down at this angle and 3 that come down at this angle. Then over here you can see a groove cut into the key. That groove controls 4 sliders down here in the bottom of the core, which in turn regulates a spring-loaded sidebar. Now, that seems like it would be pretty darn difficult to open, but here's why it isn't. I've run into several of these format locks before, and on every single one I've been able to rake open the dimple pins. Of course, that doesn't open the sliders, but it gets you part of the way there. And the reason I'm able to rake them is because there's only one security pin. It's right up here in the number 1 position. There's also an anti-bump pin in the back, but regardless of those pins, every single time I've been able to rake them open. With respect to the sliders, they're not hard to open because they lack an important security feature, and that is false gates. Not a single false gate in any of the sliders, which means if you have a good method for manipulating them, you should be able to get past the sliders pretty easily. So, let's see what it takes to get into this guy now. I'm going to use this clom dimple rake to start out with and try to get the dimple pin set. And I'm getting a little bit bound up in there, and we got our false set, which means that we have the dimple pin set, but my rake is stuck. So let's try to get him out. There we go, got it. Now we're going to switch over to a dimple pick and set those sliders. Okay, 1 is set, 2 is set, 3 is a little springy. We might have to come back to him. I'm not sure if he's set or not. 4, okay, we got the lock open. So as you can see, despite the fact that this really looks like it would be a formidable lock to pick, it's relatively easy to open. Okay, let's take this guy apart and see what's inside. I've already removed one component. That is this little C-clip that goes right here in the top of the cylinder. What that does is attach the core to this reinforced steel spine in the back. It's an anti-snap feature, and it's a pain in the butt to get off, so I did it before I started the video. The only other thing we have to do to remove this core from the rest of the cylinder is to remove a small screw we have up top. Let me do that right now, and then we should be able to pull this core right off. There we go. Okay, let's get the pinning tray over here. Okay, next thing we'll need is a C-clip remover to get that guy off. Now a key and a follower should finish the disassembly. Okay. You can see we have our 7 pins up top, and then we have the sidebar in the bottom. I'm going to drop that sidebar out into slot 8 right now and try to get those sidebar springs out as well so we don't lose them later. Okay, these sidebar springs are being a little bit difficult. There we go, got both of them out. And in the process, I seem to have dropped one of our key pins. That is the number 2 pin, so let me move him over. Okay, let's dump the rest of these key pins out. I'm leaving the key in because that key helps to retain these sliders so we don't lose them while we're dumping the key pins out. Okay, there's number 1, number 3. Okay, number 4's given us a little bit of trouble. And wow, I just lost a bunch of them by accident here. Okay, looks like we lost 5 and probably 6. Not sure what order they are, but I'll try to figure that out in just a moment. And looks like 4 is going to be a real pain. There we go. Okay. Let me arrange these key pins. I'll probably figure out which ones go in which slot as I reassemble this. Okay, now let's get these sliders out. Okay, the number 1 slider, and spring is not coming out. There's the number 2 slider. Three and 4. Okay, now let's get the driver pins out of here. Okay, here's our sole security pin, a serrated pin in slot 1. Standard in 2. Same in 3, 4, 5, 6, and number 7 should be our anti-bump pin. And it is. Okay, let me give you a zoom in of the inside of this core before I put it down. And maybe we can get a flashlight. Okay, you can see we have our staggered pins with 4 on the left and 3 on the right. And in the very back you can see another hole. All that is the screw hole. Remember we removed a screw when we disassembled it? Well, that's the bottom of the hole. Then right up front you can see a nice thick piece of drill protection. Okay, let me give you a close-up of all of this. Okay, on the key pins, you can see all of them are standard. They do have a little shelf milled into them. They do 2 things. First, they keep the pins from dropping too far into the keyway, and they also can act as an anti-bump feature. They keep the key pins from dropping too far into the keyway by interacting with a small shelf milled into the inside of the pin chambers, and you can see them pretty clearly in here. Moving over to the driver pins, you can see we have one serrated pin in slot 1, 5 standard pins in slots 2 through 6, and then an anti-bump pin in slot 7. Above all the pins, we have our 4 sliders. Of course, there are no false gates. And then in slot 8, we have our sidebar. Moving over to the core, we can see our 7 main pin chambers, and then we have our 4 slots for sliders, our slot for the sidebar, and then a nice thick piece of drill protection that wraps all the way around the key. So it'll probably be pretty difficult to drill this lock out. Other than that, nothing terribly unusual here. Okay, that's all I have for you on this Yale Superior Euro Profile cylinder. If you do have any questions or comments about it, please put them below. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day. Thank you.